Welcome to the John Cady podcast. I'm John Cady, U.S. Navy retired, former minister. As this is transitioning between the end of 2025 and being the first podcast of 2026, it's only appropriate that I touch on a tradition that churches once held in abundance, but has kind of faded by the wayside over the last 15, 20 years. And what I'm referring to is the Watch Night service, which was the church community's alternative to the reveling and the partying that is commonly associated with New Year's Eve. When I was a young adult, churches often held what were known as Watch Night services on New Year's Eve, a time to pray and reflect on the year that ended and prayer and vision for the year about to start. Over the years, it appears fewer churches hold these services. The reasons vary from declining interest and attendance to concerns over congregant safety driving home when partygoers were driving intoxicated. I did my research using, in this case, ChatGPT. Here's the results of the research. Watch night services have deep roots, but they were always more fragile than they looked. Makes sense. Where it came from briefly, in the U.S., Watch Night took on special meaning in the black churches, especially after Emancipation Night, December 31st, 1862, a vigil of prayer, fear, hope, and expectancy. In Pentecostal and holiness traditions, which I myself have seen firsthand, it became a spiritual threshold ritual, a way to pray the year in rather than to celebrate it out, a communal reset button. For a long time, it worked because church culture and broader culture were aligned enough that staying out late for church made sense. Why has it declined over the years? Was it any one specific cause? No. It's actually layers, just like the onion. There are layers. The deeper layers between the two major ones, which talk about cultural competition and safety. Cultural competition, New Year's Eve became one of the most secularized nights of the year. Churches often find themselves competing with family parties, televised events, and travel, and for many members, Watch Night just quietly shifted from meaningful to obligatory. What does that mean? That means that some churches, including some of the ones that I attended, forced people to show up claiming that you're not spiritual enough, you're not in tune with the Holy Ghost if you stay home or go elsewhere on New Year's Eve. Once obligation replaces anticipation, attendance drops. Because over time, people see through the facade and they realize, well, I've got better things to do with my time. I don't really feel like staying up here until 2 o'clock in the morning, listening to somebody browbeat me to death, so I will go elsewhere. Other churches have experienced the issues with aging congregations and safety as a whole. Many congregations have seen a decline in attendance, which often results in older people staying as younger people choose to move elsewhere. And as congregations get older, the leadership becomes more risk aware. The late night driving, intoxicated drivers, and occasionally the weather concerns. And this wasn't paranoia, but it was risk management on the part of the pastors and other church leaders. And they increasingly asked themselves, is a symbolic vigil worth a preventable tragedy? And many decided that it wasn't, and that's another reason why we're seeing fewer churches hold these late night services as opposed to 20, 30 years ago when I saw them all over the place and I even attended quite a few of them. Burnout of mandatory sacred time. This is a big one, especially in the charismatic and Pentecostal spaces. Watch night often came bundled with long services, high emotional pressure, implied spiritual consequences for skipping, as I referred earlier. The pastors would browbeat people saying, well, you're not really a good Christian. You're not a spiritual person if you have chosen to take leave and go visit family or to go to a secular event. And as younger generations pushed back against performative endurance spirituality, the appetite vanished. People still want reflection, but just not at midnight in a pew. Fragmentation of spiritual rhythm. Church life used to set the calendar. Now, work schedules vary wildly. Families are scattered. People curate meeting more privately, journals, podcasts, and retreats. The reflection didn't disappear, the shared ritual did. And yes, we have to bring this up because everybody's world changed in 2020. COVID. COVID finished what was already fading. After 2020, churches that had already cut watch night didn't bring it back. Others moved it online once and realized attendance was higher earlier or asynchronously. In other words, they catched it on delayed streaming. Midnight stopped being sacred once live stopped being required. And what replaced it, often quietly, no church is usually going to say this out loud, but many churches didn't abandon the impulse, they reframed it. New Year's Day or First Sunday vision services, which many churches have, small group reflections, which also ties into the way the early church used to gather. You didn't have the big congregations or the mega churches, they met in people's houses. This is where the small groups come into play. Written prayers or guided devotionals, which one can follow at his or her pace. Candlelight services held earlier in the evening, same longing, safer container. Why? Because you hold the service earlier in the evening, say 7:30 at night, and it wraps up by 8:39. Everybody gets to go home before the party people start hitting the bars after drinking too much and getting on the road. The deeper truth. Watch night was powerful because, one, it marked survival. It honored continuity. And lastly, it let people say, together, we made it. As life grew more fragmented and, for many, more exhausting, the communal pause became harder to sustain. The watch night services didn't fail. It's just their season had completed. So there you go. We've touched on a little bit about the watch night services. Do I miss the watch night services? Yes. But I don't miss trying to fight my way home at 12:30 in the morning and the party people have gotten out there after partying too much and they're inebriated and they aren't driving safe. At the end of the day, it is a safer alternative for those of us who believe, and I do thank God that the pastors have seen this and have taken steps to continue honoring the tradition, but in a safer format. This is John Cady. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, hit like, hit subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one.